Casual Magic has been brought to you by CoolStuffInc, where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL to get 5% off of your sale. And then also by Coalesce Apparel, where you can get really cool t-shirts and stuff, and use the code CASUALMAGIC to get 10% off your sale. And by Archidekt, a deck hosting website that doesn't really sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them. And now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Coalesce, CoolStuffInc, Archidekt, and Quiver. And today, I have a very special guest, my dear friend from one of the early episodes, episode 2, 3, something, Chris Mooney, something designer from Wizard of the Coast, who is currently the lead designer for the new Capenna Commander decks, as well as the Council of Colors representative for the color white, which if you have been playing Magic for the past year or so, you might have realized that white has been getting a whole lot of stuff that has gotten really, really crazy. And so I'm very, very interested in finding out how this color is gone from 0 to bananagrams. So hi Chris, thank you so much for rejoining me again.
Hello, happy to be back.
Yeah, it was it's been like 2 years or something since you were on, which
Yeah,
is
wow.
good gravy. That's a long time ago.
Man, time
Yeah,
truly is an illusion through these
the pandemic
quarantine
sure
era.
definitely happened, right?
Yeah.
When the heck were you on? I'm really curious.
I remember I think we talked about Unsanctioned.
Oh yeah, we were on Unsanctioned. So February
Yeah.
18th, 2020. You came and you talked about Unsanctioned, and that was that was my 6th episode. Holy crap! Wow, that was a long time ago. The show has gotten a lot better since then, or at least I've gotten better at it. So, how is your new Capenna doing? This set looks really, really cool, and I'll be honest with you. Kamigawa blew my mind, so Capenna has a very high bar to cross, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what set could follow up Kamigawa and not feel not as good, because top 5 set of all time for me. But, the story in Capenna looked really cool, the art is amazing, the styling of the card is really cool, and the designs themselves are really cool. I'm not sure yet about how it plays, but we'll get there. What do you think? How does it feel so far?
Yeah, I think Kamigawa is a very tough act to follow.
Right?
But I personally, obviously I'm biased, but personally, New Capenna is probably one of my favorite Magic settings that we've ever made. I just really, like you said, I love the art style. I love the sort of urban setting. I love this sort of genre of fiction. And I really just like seeing so many different kind of fun creature types thrown together in fancy clothes.
Raccoon rogues.
Yeah. So for me at least, I'm really excited about it. And I think that it came together really well.
Yeah, I mean, the set is hard to play, but that's just because 3-colored sets are by nature just always going to be hard. But individually, the cards are very, very cool. Like, they're all very flavorful. They're all like, I think the only miss for me has been cement shoes being an equipment that you put on. Because, like, if you've ever seen a gangster movie, you don't put cement shoes on your guy. You put them on the dude you're throwing in the lake.
All right, I hear the feedback.
But
you
not
know,
the feedback.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. For me, my take on it is that sometimes you do the most obvious thing, and sometimes you do a pun. And this one is a pun.
I will say I do really enjoy some of the random reprints that have shown up, like corrupt court official showing up from
Yes,
P3K.
that was a fun one that came from pretty early on. A lot of the times when we do sets, we will kind of do early on do a passive. Hey, what are some fun cards to maybe bring back here? And that was one where it was like, hey, we do this design a lot, but this actually is the perfect name for this set. So it
Right?
was fun to bring that back.
And like Tavern Swindler. Tavern
Yep,
Swindler feels so perfect for this set. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really cute. Yeah, I don't know. The flavor in the set is just off the chain. It's amazing. So I know that you went to New York for to get the full flavor of the pre-release because a friend of the show, Rebel, and some of our other crew decided to put on a whole 1920s like vibe flapperdoodle freaking pre-release. How did that go?
that's right. It was a blast. It was at a game store on the Upper East Side called Hex and Co, which is a really cool place. Go check them out if you live there. But yep, everyone was there. We were playing pre-release, got all dressed up. I actually was in cosplay as one of the commanders that I designed, which is such a awesome experience to have. Um, and yeah, so that was a huge blast. Loved being there. Really, right, brought it to the next level of immersion.
That's sweet. That is so cool. I love when people do that. And like I love just how I mean, watching the pictures, man, I felt so bad. I felt so jealous of not being there. It looked so cool. Um, so the thing that New Capenna has brought, though, one of the things that's very interesting, and part of the reason I wanted to have you here is that the white cards in this set feel absolutely like incredible. Like just straight up bananas, some of these cards. Inspiring Overseer, the freaking common angel cleric that comes to play flying 2/1 and draws you a life and gains you a card and gains you a card. Gains you a life, draws you a card, which is just that dwarf from AFR but with wings. And I was like that seems really really good for just a common. Like that
Yes.
seems like
Uh,
something white never would have gotten 10 minutes ago.
so if you'll allow me to dig in just a little bit for a
Please, that's what
second
you're
there.
here.
Yeah. A lot of people I think have correctly sort of pointed out, hey, this inspiring overseer card seems real strong for a common, and the same is true of Jewel Thief as well, which was a 2G 3/3
God,
vigilance
that card is
trample
busted.
treasure. Yeah.
That card is so
Um,
good. Why is that card so good?
well, here's why. We're this is the crime set, the crime themed set, and we really wanted to put murder in the set. I mean, and murder has always been for limited balance. Murder has always been a tricky card because the problem is that if it's an uncommon, it's a little bit underwhelming for an uncommon. But as a common, it's just really strong. If murder is at common, it is the best common by a mile. And
Probably.
so what
Unconditional removal is hard to say no to.
yeah. And so in this set, we wanted to have murder at common. And so one of the things that play design looked to do was to try and give other colors commons that are of a similar power level to murder.
What?
And so that's why you're seeing stuff like Jewel Thief. Now, this is, we
That
don't
is
do this we don't try this very often. So
I'm giving you a look right now, dude.
we'll
Like
see how it ends up working out.
that is
But
dangerous. That
I
is
think that
dangerous.
it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out in terms of having such strong, impactful comments.
Yeah,
Especially
so
since I think as time goes on, we have started just in general in limited to look more at putting power at more lower rarity cards to
sure.
sort of help offset some of the really strong rares that we are printing nowadays as well.
Now, I need to make a response to that because that is a very important topic that you brought up. First off, in my experience, I got to play in the early access, which was super, super cool. And then I got to play a couple of seals afterwards once it came out on Arena. murder is way harder to cast in this than I've ever seen it before,
That's right.
because hitting that double black is really, really hard in a 3-color set. If you are doing it wrong, which I was apparently, which is, not drafting pure mono or 2-color, but like if you're drafting 3 colors, getting to double black is one of those things that you don't realize how hard it is until you're staring at like turn 8 at that murder in your hand that's just like rotting. And all the other good commons that you mentioned are like single pip colors,
Right.
which is
And
easily splashable. Jewel Thief is that card is nuts. There is no world that that is a common, man. It's a 3/3 vigilance and a friggin' treasure. Like, are you for real? That is, he pays you cash back. Come on. This card is nutso. And every time I've played it, I'm like, this has been like an all-star for me. Now, I appreciate that you guys are making commons that are better, because I think that makes for a better draft experience. It makes for a better play experience. However, one of the biggest problems that happens now over the past, let's say, year of drafting for me is that the commons and the generic bottom level cards have become so good and so playable that it's hard to, for mid to low level drafters, it's hard for us to be able to sit there and evaluate cards. Because it used to be like when you're drafting an older set, there were some clear cards that are like, this is just trash, and you're never going to play this card. So just, it's like your 26th card. You can just cut it, get your clean 23 and play, right? Like it was not hard to make a sealed deck or a draft deck work. Now you've got 26 to 30 playable cards. And it's like, how do I cut this down to 23? Like, and that's good for skill testing. That's very good for like higher level play. But it means that there's a lot of lower level players who are just floundering from the fact that we can't figure out. Like, I have played in Kamigawa, I ended up playing so many 42, 43 card decks that are just like, you shouldn't be doing this. But how do I know which of these perfect enchantment enablers I should be cutting? They're all roughly equivalent. And there's like, unless you are like a deep LSV level, like, Zen of the cards type of thing, it's hard to decide which of these 3/3s is not the one I should be playing, right? I mean, it's gotten a lot harder. It's weird because I mean, in the old days, I used to complain. I'm like, there aren't enough playable cards. Stop making junk trash. And now I'm like, every card's playable. Oh no, what have I done?
right, the monkey's fist,
Yeah, right.
the
It's like,
finger has curled. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that you're correct, and I am hoping that we are able to. Right. I think one problem at a time. I think
yes,
first we're trying to make sure that commons are exciting, appealing, for people to play. And I think, as you said, old sets had a lot of commons that just weren't any of those things. So I think that we're starting with that, and then hopefully we will be able to help players better sort of learn how to approach those limited formats as we move forward. I think the community does a good job with that. Lots of limited content creators, but also who knows? Maybe we'll see something in the future of something more things that will help players learn how to draft. Certainly, I was one of the people who is spearheading putting the sort of draft helper cards that tell you what the archetypes are
mm,
into the boosters and the booster boxes.
mm-hmm.
So
Those are
maybe
great
we'll be able to
innovations.
see more things along those lines that help make limited more approachable to new players.
I hope so, because like drafting is maybe my second favorite way to play, and sometimes it's even my favorite, right? Like, and
And
it
I just want to say that you are not alone in that. When we look at formats by popularity, the most players, those commander and draft are the most preferred ways of playing. So
for sure.
when we definitely care about them a lot and put a lot of time into them, and I think that in the past, like when we were looking really long term, in the past 10ish years or however long it's been, I think we've seen a lot out there to help make Commander a lot more accessible and a lot easier to jump into. I mean, Commander's not an easy format to learn or get into
No,
either, right?
no, it
Um,
sure isn't.
but I think that as both us at Wizards and then also as a community, we've made Commander a lot more accessible. I'm hoping that we can see a similar future for Draft.
I hope so too. Did you have any part in the main set of Capenna?
I wasn't directly involved in that. I wasn't on the design team. The way that it tends to work is that most people contribute at some point, playtesting and giving feedback
Sure,
and
sure, sure.
suggesting cards. And for me, since I was the lead of the commander product, I spent a lot of time talking with the design team, playing the set to get familiar with what was going on.
Mm.
So I would say, I know at least one card I pitched made it into the final. But I think really most of my contribution was on the side of the commander stuff.
So when you're building the commander set and when you were given the assignment to do the commander, did you work in tandem with the main design team, or did you wait for them to kind of formalize the mechanics before you started work on your project?
Yeah. So basically the way that it works is that when the commander product starts up,
Mm.
generally the main set is pretty well underway at that point.
Because unlike like a lot of these ones where a lot of the sets have had like two decks that come along with it, this had the full cycle of five,
Yep,
and like not just like, oh, we're gonna print like four new cards or whatever, but like 20 something X new cards in each set. So this was basically like the year's official commander release.
that's right.
So it's like a full on, and it looks like every family got their mechanic on their main face card.
Every except for Cabretti.
Well, yeah,
Kit
Cabaretti didn't
doesn't
get the
have
alliance,
yeah,
but it
Kit
got
doesn't have
citizen.
Alliance on there.
It got
Um
citizen, so
yeah, it does make a citizen token. But yeah, so when we started, I mean we knew it was a faction set, so we were like of course we should do the full 5 decks for this.
sure.
Um and right, when we started coming up with ideas, we knew what all of the mechanics were going to be
Mm,
for each of the families. Now,
sure.
some of those changed a little bit, between when we started working and the end. And since the commander product sort of has to follow the lead of the main set, so when they would make a change to the mechanic in the main set, obviously we would have to change our mechanic as well and make sure that all of the cards still worked. But so we were based largely on, we had the flavor of the families and we had the mechanics that the families were using, and we sort of used that as our jumping off point.
Sure. So, if I recall correctly, from the way these things used to work, you would generally have like one person on your team sit and build each deck, right? Like, is that
Mm-hmm.
how it works? Like, there's five of you, and then you guys build five
Yep.
decks and play them against each other, or something like that. Who else was on your team?
So, my sort of second in command was Gavin Verhey.
Oh,
Um,
good guy to have.
yep, definitely was able to learn a lot from him. We've been kind of a dynamic duo for a while. We've been on a lot of projects together. So, for the next couple years, there'll be a lot of things where it's like that's a Chris and Gavin special. Um, but so oh yeah, so sorry. I was in charge of the Obscura deck. Um, Gavin was in charge of the Maestro's deck. Um, we had Robert Schuster, who was in charge of the Cabaretti deck. We had Ken Nagel in charge of the Riveteers deck, known lover of fatties.
Hmm.
And then we had Scott of yeah, Commander Rules Committee fame.
Larrabee.
Yeah, who was in charge of the Brokers deck.
Sweet.
So it
That's a
was
good
really,
team.
yes,
Wow.
I consider it an all-star team. Definitely a situation where this was my first ever product lead, so they really stacked the deck in my favor and gave me a lot of heavy hitters. And it worked out great.
Yeah, that's a hell of a team. Those are all very good commander designers, right? Like that's a
Absolutely.
group of people who definitely understand how to make 100 card piles work. And um so here's the thing. Do we want to talk about white first or do we want to talk about commander first?
I'm happy to go in whatever order you would like.
Okay, actually let's start with the commander decks and then we can kind of lead into
Yeah.
from there. Um so the thing that I was noticing about these commander decks is I like that a lot of these, despite the fact that they're three color decks, are very much more focused on a very specialized kind of idea as opposed to generalist. I think one of the best things that's happened since Zendikar Rising has been getting rid of just all purpose good stuff dudes and giving us creatures and cards that are like much more niche, but they're good. I'm not saying they're not powerful, but that they're not like Chulane, right?
Yes. I mean, to cut to the chase, we're making a lot more commander cards nowadays, and when you're talking about adding cards to a format that never rotates, it's very important that you are designing things to be narrow and specific and to allow people to do new things that they maybe haven't done before, or maybe they were doing them before but in a very weak way, and now they have a stronger option available to them.
Sure.
And so when it comes to, and especially when we have these creatures that have, 3 colors, which is a lot of colors, making sure that each of them is really pointing you in a specific direction is important to us.
So here's a question. Um, the design philosophy of Magic these days gives us a million legends in every set, right? Like in the main set, there are like a God, I don't even want to guess how many there are, but there's at least five, and there's got to be like five of the rainbow ones,
I
five of the
Yes, I
colored
believe there
monocolored ones.
are at least 15
Yeah, there's like
legends in the set.
12, like yeah, there's something like 15 or something odd legends in there. And then you in the precons, you have another like, you know, 2 per team, so it's another 10. That means that there's 25 minimum new creatures who are legendary, who can be bosses for decks, and this is happening all the time. How do you decide, A, first off, which ones go into the main set versus which ones go into commander set? And B, how do you differentiate them such that if you're introducing 25 new commanders, like you don't want to overwhelm the audience and or like, you know, immediately invalidate a bunch of other decks, right? I just worry that like the flood, like there's some cards I've seen where I'm like, damn, I wish that was a commander. I mean, I wish that was a legendary, and I realize you're depowering the card by not making it a legendary and therefore not allowing me to use it as a commander.
Yeah, I would say the short answer is that it's very hard.
Yeah.
And it takes a
No
lot of
kidding.
it takes a lot of brainstorming on our part. It takes a lot of coordination between multiple teams. And we have, thankfully we have a lot of great minds working on it. But really, uh New Capenna, as an example of a 3-color set, is a time where we don't often, as you said, 3-color sets are hard, they're pretty hard. We don't do them all the time. And so when an opportunity comes up, we sort of take it to be like, hey, this is a chance to really invigorate these 3-color combinations in a way that we might not
Hmm.
do for another 5 years or something.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we definitely wanted to make sure we got as many different ideas we could think of out there.
I
Um,
mean, like for instance, it feels like there's just as many new band legends that are here as were ever in Magic,
right?
right?
Yes.
I mean, that's not true, but I'm just saying that's what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah.
And I love the hybrid guys who are like mono one color, but then
Right.
also could, I mean, they're 3-color legends, but it looks so cool on the card the way it's just laid out there.
Yeah,
Um,
one thing to note as well, as you were talking about, is how do we decide who goes where? I mean, part of that comes down to that often the legends that are in the main set, right,
mhm.
are ones that have there. Many of them are intended to also potentially show up in standard, for example,
Right,
and
right, right.
that monocolored, that fake hybrid monocolor cycle is an example of cards where I'm not sure if any of them will show up in standard, but certainly having a card with a much more flexible mana cost is something that's very valuable in that format.
Right.
Where like you could just build a mostly blue deck and play the kind of Esper hybrid one, and it's like, well, I don't actually need all 3 colors on turn 3 to cast this, right? So
Right, sure.
um, that's sort of part of how we try to differentiate the designs between commander products and main sets.
Sure, sure, sure. That makes a lot of sense. Um, God, I love this stupid Rhino Orfeo who's like double somebody's power, and I'm like, this guy is just such a house. It makes me so happy to see that guy. I've crushed people with that thing. And then Mr. Haste Tribal with Agnus the Dragon Flash.
Hmm.
Um, because I was looking for who is the hybrid Esper one, and it's like I don't even know. It's in here somewhere. Um, also, thanks in question mark for giving us Rocco so that people can have Dockside Extortionist right in their command zone. That's great. I'm deeply oh, Toulouse, she was the Esper one.
Yes.
She's Conivy Queen. But anyways, let's talk about the fact that you've got the face card for the what the I don't know the new names yet. The Esper one,
Yep,
or
the
not the
Esper
Esper one.
one.
Rather, where the hell did it go? One of these ones. Oh yeah, the new Naya one, Fabian, the boss's confidant, has Parley on it. That bringing Parley back made me happy. I love that ability a lot.
Yeah, I'm really glad. As many people have pointed out, and luckily fortunately have been very happy about. I really love bringing back old mechanics. It's
Yeah,
something that I'm
apparently you
passionate
do.
about. I just there. It not only is it fun to go back through Magic's history and look at all of these old mechanics, but also it's a really fun way to add in flavor to it's like, oh, these are words and things that could exist on this plane. It's like the concepts transcend just being stuck on one plane. But also, Fabine is a good example of how the secondary commanders are very politically focused. And I really thought that in a sort of mobster world where there's lots of wheeling and dealing and backroom deals and whatnot.
Yeah,
I thought it was fun to sort of play up that fact. So the second commander for all of the decks all have some kind of political aspect to them.
yeah, that's the one thing I definitely noticed in this time around when I was looking at this. Like, holy crap, there's a lot of politicking going on in
Yeah,
this.
and that's not something that we don't want to be as high as SNC Commander every single time, but every now and then I think it's really fun to dip into that, and this felt like a really good place to do it because the flavor matched so well.
Oh god, I forgot that there were even a set of two color commanders in here, like
That's
Jolene.
right.
You know, I'm begging you to please don't punch my face.
Yeah, the
Um,
those commanders
and the
part
Phoenix, we finally got a legendary Phoenix.
yeah. The those commanders were sort of inspired by each of the allied two color combinations in limited has a theme to it, and so we kind of looked and said, could we make some commanders that kind of point towards those themes a little bit. And yeah, I'm happy that I think a lot of people are enjoying those as well, in addition to all the three color options.
Okay, first off, I need to talk about Benny Brack's zoologist. Uh,
Yes.
First off, you've got a black elven nerd here who's like, I love this. I love every part of this.
Yeah.
Also, this card is bananagrams for everything I want to do in my life. It's got Convoke. So I'm already here for that. Number two, at the beginning of each end step, if you have created a token, not a token creature, but a treasure or a clue or a blood or an ornithopter or whatever the hell you want, draw a card. Holy buckets.
Yeah.
This card is insane.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most exciting cards that came out of our team. The So to talk a little bit about the larger topic, right, uh kind of right around I started leading this product is when I became the white color counselor. um and a quick shout out to Ari Nie. She laid a lot of the groundwork for a lot of the cool white cards that you're going to start seeing from this set forward. But because I was the lead on this product, I knew that this was an opportunity where I could really try to make some exciting white cards in the new space that we're trying to give white in the color pie.
Yes. So that's the thing, and I guess that's a good place for us to jump off here. First off, there has been a lot of white draw in this set. Like, I think one of the greatest things, I mean, one of the things that we have whined about as a community for 1,000 million years has been, hey, why does white suck? And why does white suck? White sucks because it doesn't have any ramp, and white sucks because it doesn't have any card draw. Okay, fine. How can we fix that? First off, being able to draw a card every turn for doing something white does is phenomenal, right? And then you had where the hell was it? The Truce card that just came out.
Tenuous Truce.
Yeah, Tenuous Truce. That's a cool card because Tenuous Truce, which is a one in a white. Basically, it's a white curse, right? Like it's an enchantment aura that enchants an opponent. But at the beginning of their end step, you and them draw a card, and when you attack a enchanted opponent or planeswalker they have, or when they attack you, you sacrifice it. So it's basically saying, I will let you draw cards if you don't attack me. And that is such an amazingly cool design. It's both political, it's group huggy, it's exactly the kind of like risk reward that white wants, which is definitely like we're making an and it is the most commander card ever. This is the most possibly iconically political card you can have. I will let you do something if you don't if you promise not to attack me next turn. That is the thing that has been said in every single commander game since the dawn of time. So putting that on a card is just like, oh, I like this.
Yeah, the that one is one that I had been pitching for a while. And hey, turns out when you're the set lead, you just get to put your cards in, and no one tells you not to. But no, when we made this, we started playing with it, and it was really fun. It's the kind of card where I'm very interested to see how it goes. It is something that is really, really appealing to a certain kind of player. But it has applications for many different, environments slash situations. So I'm curious to see what happens with it. But
Yeah, I
just in
don't know. I
general,
mean,
I'm really excited to introduce more of these white card draw options.
yeah, because that card is so white. And it's so like, I mean, there was a card that came out in Strixhaven, I think called Monologue, Tempting Monologue or something like that.
Monologue tax.
Yeah, Monologue text. That's one that I've yet to get people to really bite on. Or like
Or sorry, are you talking about?
Tempting Contract.
Oh, that's the treasure one. The
Yeah, the
one where
treasure one.
yes,
And like so politics cards are sometimes a little harder to get people to like actively bite in, but getting a card every turn for not attacking you, that's a deal I'd probably make. That
yeah.
seems like something reasonable, right? Like,
Tempting Contract is also a little bit similar to another new card we made, which was Master of Ceremonies, which is a white card that I love from this product.
God, there's so many words on these damn cards. So
Yes, Master of Ceremonies definitely ended up with a lot of words on it, but
okay, so here let me read it for the kids who don't know every card in the set yet. 3 and a white for a 3/4 Rhino Druid. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent chooses money, friends, or secret. For each opponent that chooses money, you and them create a treasure. For each player that chose friends, you and them create a 1/1 citizen. For each player who chose secrets, you and them draw a card. Wow. I am really interested to see how this card actually works. I wish you'd put it into a creature type I cared about.
look, I can't make everything a soldier, all right? I don't
You
have that level of
you
power.
can, you just don't.
But yeah, no, this is a card that I think is deceptively strong and kind of it's
It
in a
looks
similar
nutty.
yeah, in similar space to the tempting contract. That one people can opt out and you're sort of darn,
Yeah,
my
you're
thing doesn't
kinda
really
just
do
stuck,
anything.
right?
But Master of Ceremonies is like, hey, look, you get a choice, but you're given we're getting something out of this.
Yeah. Like,
So
I'm gonna play
yeah,
the hell out of this in my treasures deck. Are you kidding? This looks
yeah.
nuts. Like, I might just replace that tempting contract. This card looks amazing, though. Like, I'm and the other one I wanted to talk about, Aerial Extortionist, which is a soldier for the 3 and 2 white,
Oh yeah, there you
4/3
go.
bird soldier. When it enters the battlefield or does combat damage, exile target permanent. For as long as that card remains exiled, that owner can cast it. So it's a lot like Paulo from Strixhaven, but without attacks. But whenever another player casts a spell anywhere from other than their hand, draw a card. That that second line of text is gross. Whoa. Like, hello, flashback. Hello, like hideaway. Hello, like all of these copy effects, all of these storm off effects. This seems utterly silly. Like,
Right. So when we're talking about white card draw, there's sort of three pillars
yeah,
that
so
I
can you
always talk
actually
about.
walk like I guess can you walk us through like when you were sitting there and you're in the meeting and you've been given this new task to fix white and they're like white needs to get card draw. How did you or you and your team or you and the team, how did you guys figure out what constitutes white card draw? Like can you walk us through kind of that like
Yeah. So
thought?
for starters, the main thing that we were approaching this at was we were really inspired by Red's sort of revamp, which happened several years ago, which gave red,
Elkin
uh,
bottle.
yeah, red gets the bottle cards, and it also we've started to print more and more kind of uh refill your hand, wheels, not all the way to 7, but still
Sure.
3 or 4. Yeah,
Like the Ox of Agonis or whatever type of
right,
cards.
yeah. And so we were really inspired by that, which was basically red was suddenly able to actually go up in cards, but it had to be in a very red way, something that felt red and strategically matched with what red wanted to do. So when we looked at white, the important thing for us is that white is still supposed to be a color that is not a go-to color for card draw, but
Sure.
we wanted to have more than 0 options. So we were looking for
What
ways.
oblation was not good enough.
Yeah, right. So we were looking for ways of helping white in ways that really felt very white. And so for starters, there are kind of 3 pillars that we came up with that we've started to use and we'll continue to use. The first is something that white already had, which was just creatures that enter the battlefield and draw a card.
Hmm.
These aren't really super life-changing cards, but oftentimes, especially at lower rarities in limited, these cards are like very useful, and they go really well with blinking, which is a very white
Yes.
strategy.
The
So
teleportation circle stuff.
right, and so we're happy with that, and we were sort of like, right, small creatures that enter the battlefield and draw a card should be in white's wheelhouse, because we want white to be the color of playing a lot of small creatures. And if you just if your small creatures never replace themselves and they just come down and they're small, then that's a really good way to have them not actually be a good thing to put lots of in your deck. So
Now, I remember for a long time that Morrow kept saying things like Mentor of the Meek, which is like one of the iconic white draw cards, is broken. Or not broken, but is color pie break, is not a card that white should have. And for those of you who don't know Mentor of the Meek, shame. But it's the human soldier that says when another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 if you do draw a card. One of like for decades, the only white card draw we had. And Morrow is like, "That's not white card draw." Has that changed?
I think that Mentor of the Meek is much more acceptable now than it
Hmm.
was for many years. That being said, it's a kind of a complex topic. Actually, Mentor of the Meek sits in a very interesting spot based
Mm,
on some of the guidelines that we've laid out for ourselves
sure.
moving forward. And I'm happy to touch on Mentor of the Meek right
In a
now
minute.
as I talk about the second
Yeah,
pillar. So the
sorry, I
second
didn't want to derail us. I've got.
no, but it's a really good topic. So the second pillar that we came up with is the idea of drawing 1 card per turn. So
Yes,
red was sort of like, what if you could draw cards, but you can only use them this turn, so you have to spend them right now. That felt very like red and impulsive, and you have to like play off the top of your deck.
yes.
Um,
All the
we
exile a card, play it now or lose it forever.
Right. And when we were like, okay, what would white do? White is a color that's a lot about long-term planning and setting everything up so that they're, like they've got a plan and it's all going to go, perfectly. And so the idea of you can draw a card, but only if you meet a condition and only once per turn was very much that idea of, cool, as long as I've built my deck to play according to the plan, then I get to draw a card every turn. But I don't get to draw 3 or 4 cards all at once. It's like, no, you
Hmm.
have to be patient. You have to continuously do something to get it. And then you can accrue a lot of advantage. That's something that both felt really white, flavorfully and philosophically, but also it works really well in Commander, because Commander is a format that is about long games and it's about having a deck that's built for a very specific purpose. And so we really liked how it felt super white, but also was really going to help white the most in the format that it needed.
Hmm.
And so in general, we like the
I'm
idea
glad,
that
by the way, that these things don't say draw once only on your turn, but once each turn.
yeah, and that's something that we are sort of open to using depending on like kind of the environment. So if we have a card that is really strong and needs to be weaker, we might say only on your turn as an example. That's something that we're sort of saving to allow us to ratchet up and down certain cards as, makes sense.
Yeah, because like in Innistrad, whatever one of those sets was, Vow, I guess you came out with a card I like to call Mentor of the Week,
Right,
welcoming vampire, the one that's like whenever one or more with power 2 or less enters the battlefield, draw a card only
right.
once each turn. So it's like definitely a much weaker Mentor of the Meek, but it's like fits into I guess the new paradigm for white.
Right. And so what I would say is one of the things that we've been talking about a lot with white card draw is that it should be like first of all you have to do something like kind of like fulfill a white condition in order to get your card. And second, it has to be slow. And there are multiple different ways that it can be slow. So for example, once per turn is one way that we sort of say, hey, you only get to do this once, you can't storm off, right? But another way that we do that, for example, is with clues, right?
Yeah, I was
We
just about to bring
actually
up.
Right. We actually have made a couple of white cards that can give you multiple clues a turn, but if you make 10 clues in a turn, you're not going to draw 10 cards right away.
Right, because they each cost 2 to crack to draw your card,
Right. And so
but,
that's
like,
another way that we're sort of
Angelic
saying,
Sleuth, right? Like, the
right,
one which
exactly.
when another permanent leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, investigate, which is, like, Cathar's Crusade's best friend.
Yeah. So that's an example where we don't have to limit you to once per turn because we're making you pay for the card. So like that's sufficiently kind of slow enough. Um Mentor of the Meek sits in that spot of like it does tax you for each card, but you can do it any number of times a turn, and it triggers on tokens, which are very easy to produce a lot of at once.
Yeah,
So
but it is hard to pay, man. It
right,
is
it is
hard
a
to
lot. So that's sort
because
of why I think by today's standards, Mentor the Meek would probably be allowed, but it's in a gray
because
area.
like, in my Soldiers Tokens deck, I had Mentor of the Meek for years and years and years, and eventually I just cut it because I was always playing it, and I would be pumping all my mana in to make a ton of tokens, and I just could not afford that tax.
Yeah,
Turns out paying 1 for a card for every creature you put in play is a lot. That adds
yeah.
up way, way quickly, and it ends up being kind of like I was like, "There's no this card seems super fair because if you can get it to work at all, you should deserve an award, man."
Yeah. So I it's difficult to say if Mentor of the Meek is exactly in Pi
Mm,
nowadays, but it's certainly a lot closer
sure.
to what we think is acceptable for white.
Mm.
So the final category, the third sort of white card draw is the sort of rule setting card draw of like there's some kind of rule that you've created, and as long as your opponents obey the rule they're all good, but if they start breaking the rule then you're going to draw some cards.
Right.
This was really one of Ari's great ideas that I think was totally uh
It's like a magical idea. I love
yeah,
it.
it totally sort of was a huge step forward in thinking about white because for a long time, so white is a color that really wants to lay down the law. It wants to set up rules and barriers and sort of stop people from doing stuff. But the trick is that making those kinds of cards was very tricky because only a small number of players really like playing with them and a large number of players hate playing against them. It's like, oh my
Mm.
god, like it's so annoying that you've turned off all of my fun stuff.
Mhm.
So it was tricky because we want to make those cards because it's a big part of white's identity, but if they're not very fun for most people, then we're not really incentivized to make them. And the idea of instead of saying you can't do this, and instead of saying if you do this, I'm going to draw some cards, sort of allows us to kill two birds with one stone because we're both now we can make more white rule setting cards that still have the flavor, but instead of stopping other people, it's giving you resources in a way that feels super white and is shoring up one of white's weaknesses. So
Mm.
that's where cards like Aerial Extortionist is like, hey, you shouldn't you shouldn't be casting spells from all these weird places.
How dare.
And like if you do, then I'm going to draw some cards. Similarly, one of the very exciting white cards is Smuggler's Share,
I was
which
just about to say, I'm
yep.
like, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the
The
3
raccoons.
raccoons.
Yeah, the raccoons in
Smuggler's
the room.
Share, which is like the new freaking smothering tithe over here. At the beginning of each end step, draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more this turn, and then create a treasure for each opponent who had 2 or more land to enter the battlefield this turn. Oh my god, this card is fantastic. First off, acting as a check against ramp is unto itself like something that Commander in general just needs. And I say this as a degenerate ramp player. I love ramping out. I love putting out 300 lands and then putting out something big and stupid, like that's my commander. But I believe that I should be checked somehow. And watching you get a bunch of resources for that is a great way to check me. And like this is way better than like the risk study and ties because it doesn't ask you to just keep saying, do you pay the one? Do you pay the two? This is
Yep.
just like, hey, at the end of the turn, I just take a tally and it's every end step. It's not your end step, it's every end step. So if you guys start drawing cards, like, oh god, I love this. I love this card so much. But also it is very it's very much something that I would be cautious about and be paying very close attention to how this actually works out.
Yes, this is definitely a card that like purposefully is sort of all right. Let's make a strong one of these and see sort of how it affects things. It's the kind of card where if this card ends up being really strong and heavily played, I I think like it's the kind of thing where mostly what it is doing is like policing
Yeah. Like
other
that's
people's
I
stuff.
think it's
So
a self limiter, right? Like
right.
it's it's depending entirely upon what the other player is doing. So if the other player is playing a fair deck, you're going to be just sitting there with this card that does nothing. If they're just going ham, you're going to get resources. So that seems fair. That's a condition that triggers on occasion. And in higher power games, it's going to trigger a lot more. In lower power games, it's going to trigger a lot less. And that seems like the exact right spot to be. How did it play out in your testing?
I think that it felt appropriately strong to us when we were testing it. Certainly, now it like within the last, couple months, we have started up the casual play design group who
I
is
want to talk to them real badly.
yeah, they're super awesome and they are really focused on testing all these cards. So that group did not exist back when we made this. We had to test this the old fashioned way, which was just the design team sitting down, jamming some games, and seeing how it worked out. We were pretty happy with where it ended up. We knew that it was strong, but we think that it is a fair card that is mostly doing good things. Um, I as with everything, time will tell if we were right or not. But I will say that as the
But
white
you guys at least knew going in that this is gonna be a
oh
big
yes,
marquee card.
definitely. This was definitely one of the cards that I would have, at the beginning sort of called out as like this is going to excite a lot of people.
It sure
People are
is.
going to be really hyped. And I'm hoping that it lives up to the hype and that we see more white decks kind of right playing this and starting to skim a little bit off the top of what some other
I
decks are
love that
doing.
flavor so much of just like, "Hey, you gotta pay your tax if you're" it's like it feels like being the, like, you're watching the smugglers come in and you're just like, "Alright, man, I'm gonna let you use my port, but you better give me a piece of gold before you do."
Right. The playtest name for this card was literally a little off the top. And then the creative team just made this amazing art concept with these raccoons. I
Oh
love it
god.
so much.
Yes, I mean, I'm super stoked for that. Okay, so I wanna talk about a little bit more of some of the other white cards. First off, also Grand Crescendo, love it. Thank you
Oh
for
yeah,
giving
that
me a fireball that makes dudes and makes them all indestructible until end of
yeah.
turn. Every
Um
part of this is a card I wanna be
that's a
playing.
very exciting one. And it's definitely part of our we want to make sure that there are some uh fun options out there for ways of protecting your team. Um And so I was really, really happy with this one.
The fact that it's an instant that I can then jam a whole bunch of tokens into play and make them indestructible, which means you go ahead and cast Wrath of God, and in response, not only my team survive, but there are also more of them. And that warms the tokens of my heart, right? Um,
Yeah.
but the question I had was for this card Jailbreak that you made.
Mm.
Jailbreak is one that I've been looking at, like, I'm like, this is a real humdinger. Like, it's a reanimator card in white, so 1 in a white, return target permanent card in an opponent's graveyard into the battlefield under their control. When that permanent enters the battlefield, you get to return one of yours with equal or lesser mana value from the graveyard to the battlefield. This seems really questionable, right? Like this is one of those cards where I'm like, ooh, do I want to be giving them an advantage in order to get something good back, or ha- this is one of those ones where I would stare in my hand for a long time and be like, I don't know what to do with this card.
Yeah, Jailbreak is definitely a fun one, an interesting one. It's it's the kind of card where, right, and we've said this about a couple of cards tonight, but um uh it's a card that a player once gave me this great metaphor, which I think is great, which is that it scale instead of scaling with intelligence, this card scales with charisma. It is a card that is stronger when you're using it to make an ally, and it's like, hey, I'm giving you this thing back, like now we're friends now, But also, I think that there's a lot of creative uses for it, where you might be bringing back something that isn't super relevant for someone else, but bringing back something that's super important for you. Um, you know, or one thing that also is fun to do with it, that often happens is you let someone get their fetch land back, and then you also get your own fetch land back.
Oh, that's
Um,
cute.
so there's a bunch of different like little uses for it. It's a card that I don't think is very obviously powerful, but I'm interested to see what players sort of do with it. For a lot of cards, part of when we were talking earlier about making more niche cards, more specific cards, part of that is making cards that we know aren't going to be universally appealing on purpose. We're making cards for like a select group of players, and then we're
Sure.
seeing, hey, if more players than we expect like this, cool, maybe we should make more of these. And if less players than we think like this, then it's like, okay, well, maybe we won't make another one like that again. So this is one where I'm interested to see
Right.
how the audience responds.
So I was looking at one thing I've seen a lot of in this set is that there's a lot of cards that goad now. Goad is one of my favorite mechanics in multiplayer, but like there's like 3 or 4 commanders that are just like do something, goad their thing. Like Beamtown Bullies, by the way, which is one of the most nutty cards I've ever read. Like target opponent whose turn it is puts a non-legendary creature from their graveyard onto the battlefield under their control. It gets haste and then goad it and then exile it. What in the blazes is going on with this card?
Yeah, the Beamtown Bullies have a very special place in my heart. As we just had this idea for like a those that gang down the street that you would go to for stuff. And we went through so many different like designs for them, but when we came up with this one, it just seemed like such a fun way of like being able to reuse your like if you got a deck full of giant fatties and a bunch of them are dead, this is a cool way of being like, hey, you have a turn, take this and punch someone else. But then also obviously knowing all of the like very mean things that you can donate to other people, this was one that uh
It's like,
I
here, take my phage. No,
yeah,
please.
yeah.
I insist.
So yep. I mean, they're bullies. And I think that right. This is I just recently at time of recording, the not commands, the game nights episode with
Hmm.
Jimmy playing this came out, and that it was so awesome to see that episode, because in that episode we both saw the like donate something like like a creature with a big downside to someone else, and it's
Here's
like,
my leveler. Happy birthday.
right, here's my bold weird heavyweights, we're all gonna go get some awesome stuff. But then also in the same game we saw him donate a really good creature to someone else to try and make a deal, and that's sort of what I love in this space, is cards that sort of open up those opportunities to both do mean things, but also to sometimes you gotta do something nice for someone else.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the other colors because I don't want to monopolize just on white, even though God, there's so many good white cards that have just come out. Um, is there any other white card in the set that you want to talk about right off the top? First off, Halo Fountain. I love it. Oh my God, Giada. First off, look at this. You made a Mono Dork in white. You made a Mono Dork for Angels. Angels getting a low drop that's also like gives it a free Cathar's Crusade. This card is basically feels like, okay, Angel players, we get it. Here, please leave us alone.
Yeah, so I mean, angels are such a huge part of the story of New Capenna. And we just knew we had this angel character. We really wanted to make a card that was going to excite angel players. What I will say about Giada is that, as you kind of mentioned before, white for a long time in Commander was lacking in card draw and ramp. And we have really taken a lot of time and a lot of effort to try and up the amount of white card draw that there's going to be. I will say that when you do something like give a color a bunch of extra card draw, um, that is not the right time to also be giving it a bunch of extra ramp. We want to make sure that while we're ratcheting up white card draw in space, we don't want to also just give white a bunch of ramp cards and then oops, all of a sudden now white has both of these things and it's just also in the same space that green is in. That being said, across the board among all colors, we are much more open now to the idea of making mana for specific subsets. We
Mm,
like players to be able to cast big spells. We like players to be able to play, to get power out of building a deck around a specific
mm,
theme. And so
mm.
Giada is a great example of, yeah, she's a pretty strong mana dork, but only if you really built into this theme, and the theme of angels is like super, super, super white.
It
So
sure is.
right, as we sort of move forward, I think we're going to see a lot more cards like this in a variety of colors, white included, which is, hey, yeah, you can have some extra mana, but not just for like any old creature, only for these specific
Like this
things that
iconic specific thing that you're
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
okay, look, it also makes sense. Angels are routinely very expensive, very late game cards.
Mhm.
That deck is desperate for anything that it can do early. This card is like a slam dunk, right? But the other angel in the main set, though, the Mythic Sanctuary Warden, that's like again another of these new ways of card draw, which is remove a counter from a creature or planeswalker if you do draw a card and create a token. Holy crap. And it's a again, this was literally made specifically for me as a flying 5/5 soldier that it lets me take cards of the plus ones that I've been making, remove them, and get citizens and whatever. I love it. This seems exactly like another way for white to leverage its strength, making a ton of tokens and counters. Uh, it seems like a fantastic card, just top to bottom.
Yeah,
Um,
the yeah, we definitely are. New Capenna is sort of, I would say the start of a new era of white being able to get these card draw designs.
are you guys afraid that you might push it too far?
Yes. Yes, we are. Even in the design team, Gavin and I occasionally would be like, "Do we have too many white cards here?" We are definitely worried about that. But what I will say is that both myself and many other people are constantly thinking about it. And so we're definitely monitoring sort of how it's going. These are the first time the cards are hitting the audience, so we sort of have to see how it goes first. It's possible that we went too hard, or it's possible that we didn't go hard enough. I don't
That's
know
not
yet.
possible. That's not possible. I've seen the look. I think I know a thing or two about commander cards, and you definitely did not go not hard enough.
That's what I would expect as well. But it's generally when you know what they say about making assumptions.
Can I
Anyway,
first off?
what I
Yeah,
will
go ahead.
say also though is that there's a lot of sweet white card draw coming out in this set and a couple more sets. I would say players shouldn't expect this amount to remain the amount we get every year. Like, we're
Yeah,
doing
I
some new
feel like
stuff. We're trying to get some new tools out there, but we're not going to be making this many white card draw cards every set, forever.
you can't because commander is already struggling with the amount of cards that we have that are just good and playable. And like the more hyper playable must play cards that we end up with, the smaller our decks end up becoming. And that's the thing that I know I'm definitely worried about. I know you guys have definitely got at least some concern about because some of these things like smugglers, whatever, are going to be just auto staples. And I'm just worried that the more perfect cards we print, the more limited. I mean, I realize that's like a much more bigger high picture, a big picture concern than necessarily an individual level concern. But as somebody who's concerned about the health of commander in the broad scheme of things, I'm just worried that by giving everybody everything they want, we're going to homogenize the game.
Yeah, and what I would say is that first of all, like, we definitely hear that concern and we think about it whenever we're making cards for stuff.
Yeah, because you
Um
guys need you also know that if it ends up just homogenizing, you're gonna have nothing left to sell, and we're gonna have
right.
no game left.
One of the things I could talk about that topic forever, so I won't delve too deep into it. I will say two things. The first is that there are a few spots left that we think we're okay pushing a little bit, and white card draw is one of them. where
Hmm.
it's like we might overshoot. If we overshoot, that we never want to overshoot. If we do overshoot, white decks getting to draw a few more cards is a place that we're okay saying
Hmm.
this is fine if it ends up a little bit strong, um because that's something that for a long time people have very correctly assessed is as a weakness of the color.
Yes.
um the other thing that I will say is that we when it comes to commander with an eternal never rotating card pool, uh we try our hardest. It's very difficult to to be able to do that because of the nature of the format. But as we go on, we're always sort of thinking of what is the new space, the different space that we can push out into different directions. For example, something that we've been doing a lot more recently is making a lot of cool 3 mana mono rocks, right? Which is
Yes.
like, hey, you know, we don't want to make more 2 mana mono rocks. The 2 mana mono rocks are already kind of just like a ubiquitous thing that, like, people have to play.
Arcane Signet, I will be honest, Arcane Signet boned you guys really badly, basically forever now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Signet space was already sort of not great space to be playing in the first place. But essentially, the 3 mana mono rocks are an example of, hey, we can make a bunch of these for a bunch of different strategies, in all different colors at various different strengths. And 3 mana mono rocks are things that are like not every deck wants to play a ton of, but like if we make more and more cool ones that like go with different deck themes, all of a sudden it's like, hey, when I'm building my mana base, maybe I'll throw in this one that like fits really well with what I'm doing.
That said, though, can we talk about one 2 mana monorock specifically?
Yeah, go for it.
Where the hell is Talisman of Progress? The white blue talisman that does 1 damage. Literally the only one of these things that has not been reprinted in like 1,000,001 commander decks.
What I will
That and like
say,
Talisman of
I
Impulse.
look, I can't talk too much about
Look,
future plans.
I'm not
All I
going to
will
tell
say,
you. I'm just
all I will
saying
say, yeah,
this card should not cost $17. What I'm saying, I realize you can't talk about secondary market and stuff, but maybe in the grand scheme of reprints that you might or might not be considering, Talisman of Progress is sure one that could use one.
yeah. All
And
I will
Impulse, because
say,
Impulse hasn't been done since Mirrodin. I don't know why.
yeah,
I guess nobody cared about green red.
the the talismans are not cards that we are purposefully ignoring, is kind of what I will say. I think that the talismans are very much on our radar.
Yeah. Like, I don't like them. They're not my favorite card. I hate paying life for mana. But also at the same time, I understand that I am not the only commander player in the world, and that a whole lot of players have come to me specifically being like, yo, where the hell's the white blue talisman? And I'm like, fair, fair. I don't want to play it, but I get that everybody does, and it doesn't make sense that that one of all of them should be so expensive. But yeah, anyways, I've done my due diligence and told you. So now we can talk about fun cards like Boxing Ring, which is one of the most flavorful cards ever. Like a card creature enters the battlefield, has to fight a creature that is in its same weight class that has the same mana value, and then you can make it treasure token only if something you had fought this turn. I love it. Oh my god, it is so
Yeah,
flavorful.
the
Also, there's hella boxing cards in this for some reason.
yeah, the what boxing ring is a fun one. Um, Jules Robbins, who is the lead designer of the main set, sort of whenever he's working on a set, he has a big list of like, what are some tropes that we want to hit. And any ones that weren't in the main set, he sort of gave to me as like, hey, you should see if you can make some cards out of these. And boxing ring was one of those. Right. Sometimes you make cards because you really
Why is
want.
there a traffic light, by the way? What the
um
hell, man?
Look, sometimes you write three-way intersection as the playtest name of your card, and then the creative team is like, yeah, that sounds good. And you um I think it's super fun. Like, I mean, it's a three themed card, and I think it being like a traffic light with 3 lights is super funny. And what I didn't realize, Gavin and I, we made this card, we like put it out there, and we didn't realize until later that the card actually has three instances of the word three and three instances of the number three on
Yeah,
it. And I was like, wow, it all like perfect.
it's
We didn't even
very clever.
realize. Yeah.
Okay,
But boxing ring, just right. Sometimes you make a card where you're really trying to aim for like a specific, section of commander to help XYZ thing. Other times it's like, here's just a funny card.
yeah, it's like, "You guys figure it out, it's fine." And
Yeah,
I know that there was in Jumpstart, there was a green-red commander that
right.
showed up who does fights, and
Yeah.
it's just like, "Oh, this card is just cool." But the one that I cannot wrap my head around is Vazi Keen Negotiator, which is the Jund one, a 3/3 haster that says, "Tap, target opponent creates X treasure tokens, where X is the number of treasure tokens you created this turn," and then other text that doesn't matter because why the hell would I give you treasure tokens?
Yeah.
I mean, the other text, of course, is when an opponent casts a spell or activates ability, if they use a treasure to do it, you get to put a 1/1 counter on target creature and draw a card. But that's not good enough to let you win. Like, if I give you a crap ton of treasures off of my dock side, you are going to win.
Yeah, so the secondary commanders for the main decks were pretty much all political cards that were sort of playing in that space of like, can I convince, maybe giving other people some things, but really helping me out in return or convincing them to help me or join me, whatever. Vazi is much more in the space of just because she is a, set booster card. On those cards, sometimes we get a little more niche. Like, we made a clue
Oh, is
commander,
it?
or
I
sorry,
didn't
a
know.
curse commander, for
Oh,
example.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. And so Vazi is much more in the space of like, you are actually like a Jund group hug thing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was like, right, that's not going to appeal to nearly as many players as some of these other ones. But hey, we're making a lot of legends. Sometimes you got to make legends for a very small audience. And I think that there will be an audience that will enjoy giving other people treasures and being like, fund your giant creatures, fund your whatever. The same way that, like K and T decks allow other players to draw a bunch of cards and ramp and whatnot.
Sure. Okay, fine. The idea of putting it in as a group hug deck for freaking Jund is
Right,
suddenly
John doesn't get a lot of group hug options, so I was like,
sure doesn't.
this could be a
It
fun one
it
for them.
it sure doesn't. Yeah, I didn't even know that those were set booster exclusives because there's still no list of all of the set booster exclusives anywhere. Um, you should tell your boss to put that on the page somewhere. Um, okay, because I guess is Benny also a set booster exclusive?
Benny is.
Oh, damn it, I want that card. Um, okay, let's see here. What other cards was I looking at? There was a bunch of weird. I mean, God, there's a lot of weirdos in this set. Um,
I do like my weirdos.
like Prosperous Partnership is so clever. You know, it enters the battlefield, you make 2 tokens, and then if you tap 3, which means once the 2 got married and have a kid, you can make a treasure token. Lol, I get it, cute. Um, Making new confluences is clever. That must have been a real pain though, trying to come up with 3 things that you can just balance for triple color things.
It was a pain, but pretty happy with how they turned out.
Yeah, they all look really rad.
I hope
Uh,
I hope people put them in their deck and see the fun things that they can do.
I really, really liked, where the hell did that card go? Life Insurance. That
Hmm.
card, because Extort is one of my favorite abilities, and when a non-token creature dies, not just yours, but any, you lose a life and create a treasure token, which means for my Aristocrats decks, this thing is gonna go ham.
Yep. The
It's gonna be nutty to
yeah.
just be jamming a whole ton of I mean, you will die. You will die. Just like the dude in the picture, just like Scrooge McDuck, you will end up buried in a pile of coins. GG's.
Yeah, the life insurance. For each deck, we decided to make one enemy colored card since there weren't very there aren't any in the main set. And I really wanted to make an extort card because it was like, look, it's the literal
Right?
mafia set.
I thought
We
extortion was gonna straight up just come back as a set
right
mechanic.
there has to be an extort card here, and so we made this one, and I'm pretty happy with how this one has turned out.
Yeah, that card is sweet. I love Jolene as like the treasure queen. Like she works really, really well with Magda, which is one of my favorite cards from last year. So I'm super stoked. Um, what other weirdo cards are on here? Let's see. Bess is cool. Um, I'm just like looking through this list. I'm like, damn, because I haven't got my decks yet. Like I'm literally gonna get them tomorrow, and I'm very, very excited for these new things. Um, are there any stories here you want to share with me while I look and try to find other questions I want to ask?
Um,
Dodgy Jalopy, love that. Um,
yeah, the I mean, I could tell a story about every one of these cards. The
what was your favorite deck to play that you didn't build?
uh of the you see of the four that I wasn't in charge of.
Yeah.
I think uh the one I probably the Riveteers one,
Hmm.
Henzi's deck. I will say that I think I ended up in a spot where I really personally like playing all of them.
Good. That's how it
But
should be.
yeah, no, but Henzi's deck of just like once you've bashed some creatures, you just like you're living in a new world. It's like when you've bashed Avenger of Zendikar or something. It's just
Lol.
like, oh, this is sweet. Or like when you bash out something gigantic and then you sack it to greater good or whatever. Like there's
Oh,
just
yes.
so many awesome things to do.
By the way, they call it Blitz, not
Oh
Bash.
god, that's right. Bash was the name in playtesting. Blitz is the final name.
Okay, change of plans wigged me out when I saw it. I was like, each of the cards connives, and then they all phase out. And I didn't understand because I hadn't played it yet. I'm like, connive can't be that good. Turns out, no, that's actually very, very good. Um, and then I like the in too deep, the thing that turns somebody into a clue.
Yeah.
That's cute. Um, Can you give me some like what was it like leading your first commander team? Like how did you set this up? Did you I mean you've obviously been like strong second before. They don't just let you lead them out of nowhere. So you knew what you had to do, but it must have been wild that first meeting you sit down and go like, "All right, we're going to be making commander decks." And everybody's looking at you like, "Tell us what to do, chief." And you're like, "But you were the ones who taught me." And it's like, "Ah, it is time for the student to become the master now."
Right. Definitely it was pretty challenging, especially since kind of in the middle of this is when quarantine
Right.
happened.
Yeah, that's the other
Uh
thing. You have to do this all during quarantine.
right. So shifting to working under that condition was pretty challenging. But ultimately I had a lot of fun and really I think that right, having such a great team to back me up, and then also all of the something that doesn't get talked about very much is just how many other teams are involved with the creative team that's working on the art and the names and the flavor text, the editing team that's helping to make sure that like the cards actually fit in the text box and work in the rules, the digital teams, since these cards get implemented on Magic Online, so you also have to go through all that. So there's so many other teams that are working together to make these things come to life. And so even though I obviously had a huge part in making all of this, there are so many other people who often don't get credited who are also a part of this. So really it's a huge collaborative effort, and that just made it so much very sort of smooth and easy, and not really nerve wracking because all these other people are there to support me.
Yeah, but, like, if you're working with, like, someone like Scott Larrabee, who's literally on the rules committee, it must have been a little bit of pressure to be like, "Oh, I hope you don't make anything that he bans." You know?
It is true. We do try to not make cards that would get banned. But no, I
Rip
mean,
Loopy.
right, working with Scott was great. And he was really able to. He was in charge of the brokers deck, so he went on those deep dives to find some of those cards that use weirdo counters that deck
Oh
loves.
god,
Um,
dude, I love the Broker's deck. Seeing some of the counters that showed up in that thing just made me let me see if I can find some of the ones. Broker's deck list. Finding deck lists is such a pain. Um, where the hell is it? Okay, yeah. So Luminarch Aspirate, obviously, it makes counters. Sure, why not? But then you have like Slippery Bog Bunder. You know, all these weirdos from Ikoria that give you like hexproof counters or
mhm.
double strike counters. Um, there's the let's see. You have -1, -1 counters from things like Wickerbow Elder. You've got um the feather counter from Avian Mimeomancer, Wall of Roots with a -0, -1 counter, which I thought
Yeah.
was cute as hell. Um, I mean, there's so many, like, things I would've put in, like, the filibuster guys to be like
We went very deep, and we found a lot of them, and we spent a lot of time having to figure out what was like good and what was like too cute. I'm very happy to have people in the wild go get all of those cards that just have random ass counters and put them in the deck.
Well,
I'm
yeah, because
totally
half
happy
the
to see
fun is
those
gonna be
lists.
like, "Check out this card from Mercadian Masks. It makes tinker counters. What does
Right?
that do? I
Yeah.
don't know, but it counts."
Yeah.
Hoofprint of the Stag, for instance, with freaking hoofprint counters. Come
Yeah.
on. So
Uh,
good.
yeah.
Oh god.
It's always nice. It's always fun to find something that has not been called out in Magic before and makes you think about the card pool in a totally different way.
I think that's one of my favorite things, and also, not gonna lie, the fact that Janara Asura of War is in this makes me so happy because that was the first card I ever played in Commander. The
Yeah.
first
The
Commander deck I ever got was a Janara deck, so
each of the decks we picked one existing 3-color legend to reprint. Um, and so like right, Janara was the Broker's deck
yes.
one, and then the other ones were Kess, Kresh, Gahiji, and Alayla. And so it was just nice to help drop in some like old time
And of course, you
favorites of
put
these
my
different.
favorite card of all time, Assemble the Legion, with its muster counters. That was like I'm like, all right, whoever made this deck made it for me. I get it, I get it. I'm super stoked about that. I'm so excited for that deck. All of these decks actually, well, okay, all of the green-based decks all look like they're exactly my style, and all of the Grixis and Esper decks are exactly not, which is
Uh-huh.
pretty much. But I saw today somebody showed me an Angelo deck that they were starting to build out, and they call it Bolt Tribal, which is basically every like direct damage lightning bolty type spell with like errant and with just casualty. You make a ton of tokens and
Uh-huh.
just sacking them all to make like quadruple bolts all over the place. I'm like, that I approve. I approve of that kind of Grixis nonsense. Um, Extravagant Replication, the cool enchantment from Blue, which at the beginning of your upkeep, you create a token of another target non land. Was it too much to be able to say you can make any target permanent you control? Did you
Yeah,
not want like cloned land?
we tried it. We went back and forth a lot on land versus non-land.
Mm,
Ultimately it was just like copying the lands was one, like very annoying for people to do, and
mm,
two, almost, I think in like 99% of cases someone had a mono rock or something else to copy that was just more interesting than copying the land. So um we were mostly like, like if we say, as an example of the kind of stuff we think about, it's sort of like these are such niche cases because the card is going to be used so much to copy other bigger cooler stuff. So it's like if we say land, it means that in the situation where literally all of your permanents are dead except this one, somehow this one evaded the planar cleansing and it's still in the battlefield, like then you can copy a land. Great. Alternatively, it also means someone can just make endless copies of their Maze of Ith. Uh and
yes.
it's like, okay, maybe non-land
Or
is
like,
just better.
4 Gaia's Cradles.
Right. So, it's not necessarily that it was too strong. It was more just like it's kind of annoying, and the other thing seems more fun. So, let's just write
Fair.
that.
Wave of Rats made me laugh when I read it. This stupid rat thing, when it 4/2 trample, when it dies, if it dealt combat damage this turn, return to the battlefield under its owner's control and with blitz so that you can blitz it in, attack, it dies, you draw a card, it comes back because it's a goddamn wave of rats. It is gross, but also so New York.
Yeah. The
I was just expecting to be dragging a pizza along.
That's right. I'm sure we'll see a lot of some fan art
I was gonna say I'm like
of
Pizza
this
Rat
card with Pizza Rat.
cosplay. Oh man, oh man. We could talk about like literally every card in here. Um, I really like that there was, let's see, Reign of Riches was cool. All your treasures become cascade spells. Um, and then Road Room Treasurer, every time you play a creature, you get a treasure. Crash the Party is rad. Make a tapped 4/4
Yeah,
rhino for
that
each tapped creature you have.
that was Robert Schuster just suggested that card, and we all loved it for just how simple it
It's so
is, but
green.
how cool it reads. Like, oh man, there you just get so many 4/4s.
Oh my god, dude! And with doubling season and all this stuff, you're just gonna be like drowning in rhinos.
Yeah,
It's so, and with the name "Crash the Party," as
yeah,
in
oh,
a
yeah,
crash of
yeah.
rhinos.
Beautiful,
Oh,
beautiful.
chef's kiss. But you really went out of your way to add as many random of new, like, I mean, random old abilities as you could, right? Like, I see a freaking aftermath card, for God's sakes.
That's
Like,
right. Yeah, we really I really enjoyed bringing all that old stuff back so
Cypher,
much.
the first
Uh
Cypher card in a
Oh yes,
thousand
the cipher
years.
card. Well, the Esper deck is themed around, saboteurs. It's themed around hitting your opponent, and so it's like, well, cipher is all about doing that, and also flavor wise, it connects so perfectly to the Obscura, who are like spies and mystics
Yeah,
and stuff,
sure, sure,
and
sure.
so it just
I'm
felt like a
impressed that you
match
found
made
a
in heaven.
Cypher effect that A, hadn't been done, and B, didn't suck.
Right.
Because Cypher
Yes.
was miserable.
There's not, and that's what's nice about being able to make these cards with old mechanics is that some of them we're not going to bring them back in a main set. Like Cipher doesn't have a full set's worth of cards left in it,
No, it
most
sure
likely,
doesn't.
but one or two every couple of years, maybe. So I think that yeah, it was pretty cool to be able to bring that back.
What's your favorite card from this pile?
I think of all the cards, especially of cards that we haven't talked about, I think that my favorite has to be Cryptic Pursuit, um, which is the manifest one that manifest instant sorceries. Um,
Where's that?
it is a blue red
Oh, it's the
card.
blue red one. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
2 blue red for an enchantment. When you cast an instant or sorcery, you manifest the top card of your library. Whenever face down control dies, exile it if it was an instant sorcery, and then you can cast it.
Yeah,
That
so
Yeah, go ahead.
I had this vision in my head of when we were going through old mechanics, we were like, what would be super fun? I was like, what would be really fun is if there was a manifest card and we had a little manifest token that was like someone in a trench coat that was like, like you couldn't see their identity. And so we made this card, and we got that manifest token. It was like one of my favorite things that we got the little trench coat
Yes.
manifest. But I love blue red spell slingers. And the thing about manifest is that manifest is a fun mechanic, but it only works with creatures, right? Like you gotta have creatures in your deck, and then
Mm,
you can flip them face up. If you have spells, then manifest is just a 2/2 vanilla. And
GG.
so I really like that this card says, no, now your manifest instant sorceries also do something cool. And so yeah, I think I really liked how this card turned out. And I think people are going to have a lot of fun with it because even just the first part of being able to make a 2/2 for your spells is super appealing and useful.
I like that Scepter of Celebration's got Citizen Link. Uh, when it's instead of like Spirit Link, or I'm sorry, Life Link or whatever, it's
Yeah.
like when you attack, when you deal damage, create that many 1/1 creatures. That's gross. Like, that's pretty gross. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, man. This set looks rad. This
Thank
set
you.
looks really, really interesting, and all the decks look really interesting. I'm very concerned. I mean, I think power level wise, it's maybe not as strong as I thought it was, but there's definitely a lot of interesting cards here that are going to go into a lot of interesting decks, and I'm very interested in seeing how that goes.
Thank you.
Um,
I That's definitely, obviously we want to make strong cards, especially for archetypes that are underserved. But also, I think right as we make more and more, we definitely want to shift that focus to making interesting cards. We want cards that will make people build cool decks, will explore new territory they haven't explored before. Just offer up more opportunities in a format that is all about doing totally new and different stuff.
Yeah, like I'm looking at Boss's Chauffeur, which is one of those cards I'm like, I don't know if I agree with the flavoring in this, but like it comes into play and is gigantic based on the number of creatures you have. And then when another creature comes into play, you make it even bigger. And then when it blows up, it becomes a pinata of citizens. That doesn't at all. It's like this thing should have been flavored as like, the Hindenburg, not as like Not as a chauffeur. I don't want to know why my chauffeur is just vomiting out a million citizens. Maybe the limo would, but the mysterious limo
He's a
already does
clown
that.
car driver, and they all
That's
fall out.
let's see here. Okay, we'll just wrap up. Let me see if there's any of these other things. I love how shield counters work. I think they're super fun. Um, I like the shield counter commander. Um, oh god, Kroos defense contractor. There's that stupid card from Battle Bond, generous patron,
Right. Yep.
where it's like put counters on other people's things, or like I'm just really sad that Hapatra is not in the same colors as Kroos, because Hapatra puts negative ones on things, and this would just go bananagrams with that, and that would be
Yeah.
really, really fun. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm very excited to see this because this definitely feels, just from looking at it, feels like a set that was designed to encourage a lot of interaction and combat between players. Like these decks are not turtles. They're not built to do that. Like all the cards in there goad or, entice people or use politics to force people to interact, which is a thing that Commander has desperately, that's like the biggest thing. Board stalls are the death of Commander. And I'm really excited to see how that works out. I think it's a really good design idea to be able to introduce, and I'm curious to see how that works out.
Yeah. Me too.
Cool, man. Any last thoughts on these cards, this deck, the color white?
Um, nope. I guess I would say I hope you all enjoy it. Feel free to, hit me up on Twitter if you've got, questions or want to say how much you like something or have gentle constructive feedback. But
You're
no, I love
destroying Commander.
I love interacting with people, and not every single comment is necessarily something we can respond to, but one of the reasons that we're sort of in the spot we are with white right now is because enough people said enough things that we were like, okay, this is a big deal. Let's address it. So your voices definitely matter a lot to us. It might take a while, but it certainly is really important to us, and I'm very happy that the community is active and is able to, usually in a polite way, tell us what they're looking for, and what we need to work on.
Okay, I will say one thing though that I would be remiss to not say otherwise, which is that y'all need to chill with the treasures. Treasures are like some of my favorite things in Magic. I have a treasures deck that I dearly, dearly love. Magda is one of my favorite cards. I loved Old Gnawbones. Obviously, I'm a biggest fan of Dockside and Smothering Tithe. But Jesus and Mary Christ, please, can we put the treasures down? They are going to break Commander because
Yeah,
Commander's already got a problem with Mega Ramp, and it does not need more Mega
the
Ramp.
only the only comment I will make on treasures is that our like mafia based set was definitely not going to play it cool with the treasures. um if As we go on, we'll see if we need to cool it down further, but this was not the set that we were going to say no to the treasures, is
Yeah,
all I'll
like
say
if
on
this
that.
is a high watermark and then we go back down from here, I can live with that.
I certainly will say I'm not gonna I don't know every set that I don't know every card in every set coming up, so I can't make any
Well,
strong claims, but I feel very confident that this is the high mark in treasure for quite a long time. Like, this is a treasure themed set. It is about these families that are fighting over like the treasure of the world. And that is not something that is going to be true of the majority of sets that we make.
Defender. What the hell is Weathered Sentinels? A 2/5 for 3 with Defender, Vigilance, Reach, Trample, and
All
it can
right,
attack players who attacked you during the last turn as though it didn't have Defender. And when it attacks again, 3/3 industry. That is some keyword ass soup right there, my dude.
yeah. So okay, all right. I'll tell the story of Weathered Sentinels, which is basically that um we were making cards for the Riveteers deck, and the issue with blitzing out all your creatures is that you oftentimes don't have blockers left over. So
Mm.
the deck needed a couple of blockers, so we wanted to put some blockers in. And we had this idea of, oh, well, what if we made this kind of like defendery creature that was good at blocking, and then to make it a little bit interesting, it could attack people sometimes. And we were like, that's cool. it wasn't really that exciting of a card though. It was kind of like, and it like, and so we were basically like, okay, well, what could we do to spice it up? And so Gavin was like, what if we just put a million keywords on it? Because not only is that just it's like a funny card to read, but B, exactly what we predicted, which is that when we released the card, like immediately the response was from people who play like defender based decks being
Oh
like,
yeah,
great, it's an awesome defender, or
every Arcade Sabbath player in the
right.
world just was like,
But also, people who are playing like, Audric or Acroma who are like, yes, I want to count as many keywords as possible, and this has like 5 of them. And so it was a great way of taking a card that otherwise was like, kind of boring, and being like, we can make this card really cool for a very specific audience. And that's really, I think, what a lot of the great, when we're making cards for Commander, not every card should be this like powerhouse or important part of the format. Some of them should be, there's going to be like 200 people in the world who are super excited for this card. And so, yeah, I think that this is an example of that.
what a weirdo card, though. That and like the one that's right above it in my screen here, False Floor. Everything comes into play tapped, and then you exile all the untapped creatures. Flavorful home run. Weird ass card.
Yeah, that was another Robert Schuster special. But it
Man,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm really interested in getting my hands on this. I've already started brewing a Jenny and Jetmir deck to try to make a bunch of
Mhm.
go to Token Town.
Nice.
Um, because I don't have a Naya deck yet, and it turns out now is the time. Um, and I really love that red Shatterstorm that was printed in, I guess, the main set
The
that
main
destroys.
set, yeah.
Yeah, the one to basically like nuke does damage equal to the number of treasures it blows up. I mean, and artifacts, but mainly, let's be real here, it's treasures. Uh, good times, good call. We need more things that hate people for playing treasures. But if folks wanted to find you on Twitter or talk to you and send you pictures of the cool things they're doing with your cards, where could they go?
You can find me on Twitter at Chris K. Mooney.
Cool. And thank you so much for joining me today, Chris. I love talking to you, and this has been a lot of fun. Wow, double
Thanks
size
for having
episode.
me.
And as always, my friends, you can find me at Gear Report Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or at Cool Stuff Inc. every Tuesday, or at YouTube whenever I get around to uploading it. The show is brought to you by Cool Stuff, Archidekt, Coalesce, and Quiver. And remember, my friends, it is not magic without the gathering, and we will see you next time.